Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 33 of the Rewatch podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, who was there when the gold made it through the gate. Joining me this fine recording session are one Amanda Howard,
who, like Bronn, also would like a castle.
Stephen Howard,
who also, like Bronn, knows how to use a ballista just by himself.
Nick Castillo,
Dracarys, straight to the point.
and last but never ever least, Gary Delaney.
I see in this episode that Bran gives away his fancy dagger that tried to murder him, and wondering if he has a secret fetish associated with it, so he has to get it out of his possession so he doesn't do naughty things to it.
So
there have been many intros. There have been many intros by Gary.
that was also
by far the most confusing. And
that was an
I
intro.
just am not on point today. I apologize.
Does that count as a conspiracy theory, or is it just a
I
convoluted
don't
intro?
know.
A convoluted intro.
Oh yeah, we're gonna go with that because I don't think anyone was following that. We'll have to go re-record the. Re-listen to the tape a couple of times to just piece together what the hell he said.
Flowchart.
Yes.
Inherent mumbling and rambles.
Okay.
All right. So we are here to discuss episode 4 from season 7, The Spoils of War. Daenerys takes matters into her own hands. Arya reaches her destination. Jaime and Bronn collect the spoils from the war with the Tyrells. I think my first talking point to even start off here is, so Jon is now on Dragonstone with Daenerys, and he's been given the okay to mine the dragon glass there from the giant cave. My part is going to touch on the part where Jon takes Dany into the cave to show her the drawings all over the cave made by the children of the forest, and I want to kind of call out the one line here of, isn't their safety more important than your pride? So, is Jon at this point being more prideful for not wanting to bend the knee to Daenerys? Or is he not being prideful? I guess that's the opposite of what I just asked there, but yeah. Yeah, so this is the part I wanted to talk about. So we're going to lead off with Amanda there.
Conspiracy theory number 1.
Don't do it.
Jon made the drawings before Daenerys walked in. We don't know.
That's an awful lot of drawings to make.
Frantically on the wall. Come on.
Like, it's okay if they don't look bad. They're supposed to look, like, very old. It's fine.
Be a solid
Also, like, they were very well done portraits of clearly the White Walkers. I mean, even someone who's, like, gonna draw some stuff on the wall. I mean, how lifelike is your drawing gonna be? I think Jon did.
Also, this far south. Like, this
Right?
is pretty far south for.
And in a
pretty
cave,
good conspiracy theory.
across
I'll
the
give it.
ocean. Suspicious. Anyhow, moving on to the actual interesting point here that Tyler brought up. I did write this down because she said, isn't their survival more important? I absolutely agree. Their survival is more important, which automatically, to me, makes Jon the better ruler because Dany is only being concerned with being queen right here.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Mic
Steven.
drop. What? Oh, we're skipping Nick. I like it.
Oh!
So
No.
it's already
I take
happened.
it
It's
back.
already
Nope,
happened.
It's going to Nick.
It's
I take it back.
already happened.
Ouch.
So what I was going to say is that I do think this shows that Jon is a better ruler and has a firmer grip on who his people are. You can say all you want that, hey, if you subserviate yourself to me and become my ward, I will spare you. Who the heck is... I mean, unless he has a really good argument for the North people, they almost revolted at him just going here. If he bends the knee and actually just says, yeah, no, the entire kingdom's yours, whatever, who knows what the North is going to do? I don't know what Daenerys is trying. Well, it's actually, I do know what Daenerys is trying to get. She just has no idea the politics of this world or this land, and she thinks that just might makes right. And it's not true. It's a very political environment. It's very charged, and you can't just bend the knee and assume that all your people are going to follow you. The people of Westeros have shown that they have a remarkably independent mind. Now we can go to Nick. Oh,
Quick
sorry.
counterpoint to your point, though, there, Stephen. Might does equal right when Aegon conquered the Seven Kingdoms in the beginning there. And then the North just came and bent the knee to him because they didn't want to sacrifice their entire army to just getting burned alive.
Sure, but I mean, would you assume that the North at this point in time, if Jon just came back and went, "Hey guys, we're now the subjects of another Targaryen," would
Oh.
just go, "Yeah, bro, nice, we got dragons,"
Like
or
it's
would they
definitely
go,
it's
sorry.
it's definitely like it's probably different than what it was back then, but yeah, the North is still definitely all up in arms. They want to be a free, independent nation now. They've got that idea planted. I will now pass it over to Nick, though.
Finally. Yeah, I was gonna
Anyways,
say,
let's move on here from.
you mother piece of trash.
Go ahead, Nick.
Worst human being in the world. I had very similar notes. I think that he makes the right move. I think that it's better not to bend the knee. You can still work with somebody and just say we'll figure it out later. Clearly, he's in the cave with you, very intimate space. The guards are kept outside with the Dothraki and the Onion Knight. So he doesn't intend to hurt you. If he's not going to hurt you, it doesn't really matter what his title is. He could still back you and be friends and go fight, whatever in the North without him necessarily having to bend the knee. I think that the point was made very plainly between either Amanda or you, Tyler, that, yeah, it's really, or Stephen maybe thinks that it's just that she wants him to bend the knee to acknowledge her right to rule. Whereas Jon doesn't want to bend the knee not because he wants to be king, but because he sees himself as the steward blocking other people attacking the North. That says it all.
And even too, to go a little further in the episode, the talking point about how Jon doesn't care what his title is, that point specifically comes up after they've already been in the cave, where Davos is slightly hitting on Missandei. They're basically on that walkway.
Slightly.
He basically like asked Jon, "Yo, Jon, what do you think of Dany or whatever? I keep seeing you staring at her all the time." And
Right.
Jon, says in that conversation with the Missandei there too, like it doesn't matter whether I'm King Snow or King Jon or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I will now pass it on over to Steven. Looks like wants to start us off with his questioning.
Oh, I do. Yes, I very much do. So I will start us off with actually a point on this subject real quick. When they were looking at all of the cave drawings, if you look at all the cave drawings, they're really basic, and then you get to the actual the White Walkers. The White Walkers are like really detailed. Like they were going through this cave, and then the I don't know, the caveman version of Michelangelo comes on and goes, "Guys, I got this," and just draws the 4 freaking White Walkers. Yeah, I thought it was funny. Gary.
I actually made a note there about those cave drawings to ask if the cave drawings you guys thought were symbolistic of like I don't know. In the post episode, the writers talk about how that the weird dead body circle is supposed to be symbolistic, or is it some of those drawings supposed to kind of be spoiler bait to like, oh well, here's what's gonna happen next in the series? I guess Tyler, what do you got?
So I don't think it's like spoiler bait or anything like that. I think it's just kind of these are symbols that they're trying to use to tie together the history of the White Walkers, because we saw way back in episode 1 the body symbol, then the spiral of bodies parts there, then the tree where the first White Walker was created, or the Night King was essentially created at. So I think it's just basically tying some of that stuff together. And then too, even speaking of the carving of the White Walkers too, they went into so much detail. It looked like they put like a little, what is a blue gem? Is it an emerald?
Sapphire.
Sapphire.
Depends on the color.
Sapphire.
It seems like they put like little sapphires in for the eyes to highlight. Oh, they have blue eyes as well.
I was thinking about that poor guy who became the Night King. Like, they just picked some random human, and like this
Poor
guy
bro.
just got raised to the king of like the most powerful guys. Seriously, like, interesting. I kind of find myself like wondering, like, what was that poor guy before they kidnapped him and made him the
Was
Night
he a
King for
criminal?
the next 10,000 years?
And they shoved like an ice into his heart, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was obsidian, yeah.
Obsidian. It's probably, my conjecture, my conspiracy theory is that it was one of those things like it's just some random warrior who they wanted to doom for damnation that he couldn't die. Like maybe it was somebody who had lost his family or had lost his loved ones, wanted rest, and instead they doomed him that he couldn't die, unless certain means were met. So maybe that was his punishment.
Ooh, see, yeah, like I don't haven't read anything about that in the book, but like just interested in the show. Like I am curious as to that poor guy's backstory, because
The
obviously he wasn't
Conspiracy.
originally like that. Oh
Yeah.
no.
Conspiracy theory number 2: he's a secret Targaryen. Fire and blood, and he makes the Night King, which is made of ice. He's the Ice King.
that doesn't equate. Fire and blood, which makes the ice. That's some deep logic there. Maybe in the history, the book in the history of the world of Ice and Fire, originally the first men were friendly to the children of the forest. So maybe he was somebody who betrayed their trust, or was somebody who said, "Yeah, don't worry, we're all going to keep our word," and then they didn't. So they got a hold of him, and he was the one who had to feel their wrath.
Yeah, the one child in the room with Bran and the three-eyed raven mentions that they created him. I mean, they didn't specify. They created him as a weapon there, basically. So they didn't specify really where he comes from. But also, again, to remember, the show version of the Night King is completely different than the book version of the Night's King. There, Gary was so enthusiastic about ready to ask a question there that he just
Man.
dropped from the call.
Gary literally like raised his hand
Conspiracy.
and
Conspiracy
The
theory.
mute
What-
button is right next to the hang up button. That's the issue I'm having today.
That's awesome.
Okay, I have one more conspiracy theory. What if, I mean, obviously the Night King is very different in the books than the movies, but what if it's not and we just don't know yet? Maybe these are going to tie together. I'm so excited.
Ooh.
Yeah, in 30 years after George dies and they find the rest of the manuscripts to release the books.
I hope he has it written down so that it's engraved on his tombstone or something. I will never forgive him if he does not finish writing these books. I'm
It's on
sure
the part.
I'm sure my
It'll be-
judgment will really haunt him, but
It
yeah.
will be on the scroll
Conspiracy
on his-
theory 2-A is that Targaryens are immune to fire. So if they're going to make a Night King, they would make him immune to fire. There's no empirical proof that he's not immune to fire.
Gary, they're not all immune to fire though.
Do you remember what happened
That's
to
why they're not
Viserion?
immune to fire. They're immune to fire because their king is immune to fire.
Oh,
What?
oh. No, I meant the Targaryens. Continue. Tell me how this works as a conspiracy theory.
They
wanna
made
hear
a
the sub-points
hybrid
B and C.
Targaryen that was immune to fire.
We're talking about a hybrid super soldier at this point in time now, which is a plot line I want to know.
Also, possibly that gives them the ability to control like dragons or other beasts of the ice forest, like yetis and giants. You never know. That could be in George's like missing chapters you haven't read yet. Is that he rides like an ice Wolverine or something? Could happen.
Ice Wolverine. Nice.
A
Can't prove
small
I'm wrong 'cause the
furry
books
woodland
aren't out
animal.
yet.
Can't prove I'm wrong. Well, he's not wrong there. Like, you are correct, Gary. We can't actually prove you wrong yet, but I am confident the day approaches.
If the words Wolverine or
In-
animal or beast that are like he's riding anything but a horse, I'm gonna take that as empirical proof that I'm right.
Gary setting ideals for conspiracy
Oh my
theorists
gosh.
everywhere.
So
It's heavy.
I have really only one more point, because then everything else that I want to talk about comes in the battle, and I think we can just like reserve the battle for a bit. So the only other point that I want to talk about is the skirmish between Arya and
Yes.
I'm gonna forget her name. What's her name?
Brienne.
Brienne. Thank you. Arya and Brienne, which is I don't know. Okay, so I get they want to do that. Oh, hey, look, they're both super cool warriors, sort of thing. It seems very much like Arya could have just killed her at any point in time, and that they give Brienne kind of a break at the very end, like, oh, look, she's just as good, and she's really not in any way, shape, or form. Tyler.
So I wrote down 2 points about that. Is like, number one, Arya kind of said she wants to train with the person who beat the Hound.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second point, which kind of is a question that I think a little bit branches off of your point there, Stephen, it's like, where the hell did Arya learn to fight like this? Like, all the time we see her fighting in the House of Black and White, not like this. She's just barely using sticks and stuff like that. I understand she probably learned to move faster and stuff like that, but I think that's completely different. I mean, being able to move faster does not apply to fencing with a sword in a one-on-one combat with somebody there. Nick, go ahead.
I'd probably go along with that. That's fair. Seems a little out of place. When she's blinded, she's still using her stick to defend herself, maybe. So something maybe along the lines of like her other senses become more in tune to her surroundings. Again, it just kind of helps her dodge and move faster. Obviously, Brienne is swinging a very heavy, large broadsword, and she's got a small little fencing rapier, so she can maneuver much quicker through the space. But I had that same comment too, to reiterate what everybody else had commented, that she wants to fight the person who beat the Hound, but in that interaction, Arya doesn't hold back right from the start and has several like stop movements where she comes right to Brienne's neck, where she would have won and got her, but they're sparring in the sense. So maybe because Brienne at first didn't want to hurt Arya, she's like, you should go grab a fencing sword so you don't actually, sparring swords, you don't actually hurt each other. She's like, I'll try not to hurt you. Like, maybe she's holding back intentionally because she thinks she is going to whoop Arya. But then when she realizes she's not and actually tries at the end, then maybe that's where she comes close to actually catching her at the end. It's a stretch, but it's something. Amanda.
Yeah, I kind of thought this was probably a little more for the viewers, just to have a nice view to see Arya, but I agree, like, her moves do not match at all what we were seeing in the House in Black and White. If anything, they're closer to what we saw way back in season 1 with Serial for
Yeah,
Pharrell,
Serial Pharrell.
when
It's
she
true.
was learning water dancing, and like we don't see her actually continue studying that for a long time. But I did also notice I also made a note during this scene about Baelish seeing. I feel like he's seeing both an opportunity and a threat here.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I was going to point that out too. I mean, like, this is obviously a cool scene for us viewers to watch and everything, but I think it's also a way to showcase to Sansa and then also secretly Baelish just how much her sister has changed, because Sansa ends up watching the fight there and realizes, oh, Arya is different than when I last saw her 6 seasons ago. Go ahead, Nick.
I had on that as well. Tyler probably gets the reference, but it had a little bit of the Walking Dead porch dick vibes for me. He's just kind of like creeping on the girls who are practicing down there. But yeah, no, absolutely a threat. I wrote down on this, Littlefinger sees the unity between the Starks. Like, the way that they're just walking the courtyard, the way that they're practicing with Brienne. He can see the camaraderie that comes easily, and how people are flocking to them because they do have that. They exude the Stark name, right? They're regal seeming. They're kind to their servants, their supporters, and Littlefinger is always scheming. So I wrote down that he's probably threatened a little bit in that scene. Was my takeaway from it. Harry.
Conspiracy theory number 3.
Oh,
Arya
God.
is secretly a Highlander, and everyone she kills, she gets stronger.
This is a conspiracy theory
Okay.
I already subscribe to. This is one I'm signing my name.
She murdered the waif. She's murdered she's the Frey guy. Like, she's just murdered a lot of people, and she's secretly getting stronger. And she gains their battle powers as she murders them. That is all.
Well, look, I might actually subscribe to that, Gary. Most of what you say is incoherent ramblings, but that might actually be something I could buy into. I could see, because you get their voice, right? Or when the waif becomes the old lady on the bridge, she's like, "Hello, young little girl," right? Maybe you do inherit some of their innate talent or their ability. I don't know. This is a world where dragons fly. Stranger crap has happened.
Or she picks up their skills or some of their mannerisms of fighting, because you pointed out that her fighting style is a little different than what you saw, but I think it's because she's can be anyone, she maybe can fight like anyone too.
Interesting.
Anyway,
Mm. Mm.
even I'm still holding strong on that conspiracy theory, even if you don't believe me.
Oh, no. I believe you in the Highlander aspect. I just don't believe you in the being able to copy everyone, aspect. There can be only one Gary, and I do believe that she is fulfilling that prophecy.
Not Pod. Pod is the
Or-
secret Highlander.
This Pod is also a Highlander. They have yet to fight off, so.
I love that Podrick was the one that pointed out, "Hey, Brienne, you kept your vow." Like, oh, Pod, like, what a guy.
That's because
I-
Pod is the best.
I had on that interaction too that she is about to reprimand Pod, and she thinks better of it and says, "Yes, thank you, Pod." Like accepts his
That growth, I
critique.
love that.
There's growth there. I had highlighted that scene as well. Of course, I had the one-liner at the end of the spar where everybody says, "Who taught you that?" and she says, "No one." I wrote down that somewhere Jack and Hagar just creamed his pants.
I heard that and I was like, that is a real just throwaway joke to the audience, just to keep people watching, to be like, ha ha, we get it, the viewer gets it, but the people in the world don't get it, so it's so funny. It's like, no, it's
called a callback.
just...
They're calling back to something that happened earlier.
I like that Gary is the one pointing out that he thinks Arya was being a jerk here.
Yeah.
Like the guy whose favorite character, the hero of the revolution, is thinking Arya was being rude here. I'm sorry, Gary,
I just
did I go
think
too
that
far?
her backstory is so vague. I just feel like it would be better, rather than these stupid callbacks, is if you have her explain it in her own words and then get all the lies she's gonna sprinkle into the story. Amanda?
I really do wonder how much, like, she and Sansa in the beginning, when they have their first little reunion, they both they mention about I'm sure your story is not an easy one, but did they sit down and actually go through their stories? Because I mean, that scene, there was so much pain, anguish, love at the same time in that reunion,
Yes.
realizing each other were very different people, but not 100% giving them credit for the growth, still holding them to the person they used to know. And yet, did they not actually sit down and be like, "Hey, here's everything"?
I don't know
I would have wanted.
I don't know if they would have believed each other's stories.
That's true.
Sansa had a very just had a lot of relationship problems, and Arya had a lot of random sci-fi murder parties. So
that was a really weird
Tyler.
way of dismissing the things that Sansa went through. She had a lot of relationship problems.
She had some bad relationship problems. Girl, flat out. Sweep that under the rug there, Gary.
Some abusive relationships. That's why I was just trying to gloss over it and try not to dig too deep into the backstory. But
do you want a shovel yet, Gary? Yeah, I would kind of just echo that point there, Amanda. It's like they're almost trying to set some tension up between the two Stark siblings here to show maybe everything's maybe they haven't come to terms with that they're different people now or something like that. Nick was up next.
I really had a couple notes on that little interaction in the crypt with the two gals. It was awkward as crap. Yeah, they've always been different characters. The last time these two saw each other, remember, was when Sansa wanted to have Joffrey's babies, and Arya had, was trying to escape the city because she thought Syrio Forel was telling her, "Get away while you can." and then she snuck aboard with the people who are going up to Castle Black. Like, as far as Arya knows, Sansa is still the naive, doughy-eyed gal who's in love with Joffrey, or always thought he was a good person until she really found out what a horrible person he was. And so I thought that there was still a lot of tension between the two of them. I went back and I watched this interaction when Arya first gets hugged from Sansa. Arya has her eyes open. She just kind of blankly stares forward. It's like, yeah, you're hugging me. That's it. It's not like that closed-eyed, warm embrace. And I also wrote down the music didn't swell with the Winds of Winterfell song that happened when Sansa met Jon in Castle Black. It's like this beautiful homecoming reunion. There was no music. It's just an awkward hug when they first see each other. And it was very tense, I thought, because they didn't really know each other. I'll let somebody else talk, but I've got a couple more notes on that as well. Gary.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, when you mentioned that this is the first time they've seen each other for a while, I just realized, like, what episode is it where Ned Stark dies? Like, that's literally the last scene they shared together.
Season 1, episode 9.
Episode 9, and we're on season 7, episode 4, since these characters interact at all. Also, I made note that, like, Arya talks about the list of people she was gonna kill, and you can get, there's a sense of tension, and Sansa laughs because she's like, she must be joking, and Arya laughs back, I think, just as like a realization that she's playing she's not revealing her true self to her sister yet either. Like, she's pretending this is a joke, but this isn't a joke for her. So that's interesting. Amanda?
That's a good point. Like, honestly, they're probably also, they do need to relearn. They both learned not to trust every freaking person that comes past, that's for sure. But I did find an interesting point. I didn't think about the point that you pointed out about Arya keeping her eyes open, Nick. That was a good point. It was kind of an awkward hug. However, I noted specifically when she was trying to get into the castle and she was telling those lovely incompetent guards, look, I'm getting in this castle one way or another. If I'm not, I won't last long. But if I am who I say I am, and Sansa finds out you turned me away. Like, even then, she was still confident that if Sansa found out they turned away her sister, she'd be pissed. So that's interesting.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I had that same note, Gary, that the awkwardness with the laugh about, I have a list of people I'll kill. Oh, you do? Yeah, I do. But yeah, absolutely. Like, I wrote down that they care for each other. Like, Arya doesn't want her sister to be gone. Obviously, any fewer family members in the world. But she doesn't really care for her in the way that she does. The next comment, too, is that when Sansa and Arya are talking, Sansa says, Jon was so happy to see me when I met him. He'll be so excited to see you as well. And that's, I wrote down, her first genuine smile in that interaction, because she loves Jon. And that smile, she like breaks a little bit, and she like has an actual, like, you can see her eyes light up. Either just fantastic acting as the character, or in the moment we see that she's like softened a little bit by that. Gary, I think you had a comment on the current stuff.
I think Arya, honestly, of all of the siblings, like, I think Arya is the only person who ever treated Jon as a full sibling, other than maybe Robb a little bit. So yes, obviously, I'm guessing that Sansa held the same disdain for Jon Snow as her mother did, because she was taught to be a prim and proper Stark, where honor is key, and Jon Snow is the epitome of the tarnish on the family name. Also, shoot, we were talking about the conversation with the two of them. I lost my point. Nick talked so long, I forgot what I was saying. I'll come back. Come back to me. Go to Tyler.
Wanted to call out a quick cameo there. The guy, one of the guards there, that is the actor that plays the character Eddie in Stranger Things, season 4 there.
Wait, what? I missed
You're
that.
right.
Yeah. The guy who does the sick guitar riff in the Upside Down. Spoilers.
Wait, is this in the incompetent guards?
Yep, the two incompetent guards at the gate there.
Oh, I am going to be looking up a picture of this right now.
And then I wanted to kind of go back. So I think I've touched on this multiple times in earlier episodes, and then we kind of sort of touched on it here a little bit of the Stark children looking more and more like their father or mother there. So Arya makes a comment to Sansa that you look a lot like mother there. And then you see Arya walking around with the bun in the back of her hair there. Again, more resembling of how Jon is dressing now and how Ned dressed a lot too. So that was what I was going to call out there. Gary, back to you. Did you remember your point?
I remembered my point, and that was the interaction with the two guards and Arya, I think, is a callback to a similar interaction when Ned is the hand of the king, and Arya has to say, my father is the hand of the king. And they were like, whatever. Like, you're not a girl. And it's the same kind of Arya being held up at the gates, being believed to not be of noble birth, to just be kind of in that first interaction a street rat, and this interaction just like a ranger or a sellsword. So I just thought that was an interesting callback. I don't know if
That's a
did
good
anyone else
point.
catch that
Yeah, well,
it was kind of
you're right, and she even answers the same like insolent way. The difference is she actually makes it into the castle this way.
no, I think she did the other way too. It's just like the guards brought her directly to Ned.
Oh, you're right. I think I'm thinking of a scene in the book instead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know Stranger Things or who these people are, so
You don't know Stranger Things?
Wait, what?
it was too,
Get on that.
too scary. It's too
It's
scary
so,
for
oh
me.
my god, it's too scary.
All right.
Because Game
Real
of
quick, I
Thrones is
also
just a
did want to
nice,
point out,
easy
if we're
stuff,
gonna make
Gary.
cameos real quick, the younger, the son of, who's Samuel Tarley's brother's name? What's his name?
Dickon.
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 Dickon Tarley. Horrible name. Don't name your child Dickon. But anyways, Dickon Tarley. He is actually also the one of the main characters in the Umbrella Academy.
Oh yeah.
He's the big burly man.
He is.
All right.
Anyway,
Who started that last question there? It feels like we went all over the place with that one.
I'm not sure.
It actually might have been me, and we didn't move on from my one question that I had.
Are you good, Steven? Should we move on
Oh
to
yeah,
other people?
everything else that I have is in the battle.
Okay. Amanda, do you have anything you want to talk about?
Let's see. We've gotten through a couple of mine. I did want to swing back to Dany a little bit. I put a couple notes in here that I noticed that in previous episodes she was very accepting of Tyrion. She was insisting that he get treated with respect and whatnot. And yet the second things went bad, she threw his family at him. Maybe you don't want to hurt your family after all. Like I was like, low blow, even if you're the queen. Much seriously, that's not how you want you. Tyrion had nothing to do with that. Enough with the clever plans. And then it was John's words to her that actually, which clever words for John, but that actually swayed her when he's pointed out, he had talked to her people, everyone was telling him like what a great person she was, how they chose her. Missandei even said she's not our queen because she's the daughter of some king we never knew. She's the queen we chose. But then he tells her, if you use your dragons to burn castles, melt cities, you're not different like everyone says. You're just more of the same. Brilliant, John. You found the perfect way to communicate because that was the only thing that seemed to sway her.
Will it sway her though? Will it?
Theon and John kind of, I don't know if, can you call that a reuniting? It's not like they were like eager to get back together.
That was not a reuniting. I don't think that was more of a. I mean, John walks right up to him and goes, "If you hadn't done what you did for Sansa, I would have killed you right now," basically. And
if I had not, like, every time I've rewatched the series, whenever that episode happens and I'm watching them like walk up to each other, I have this moment where I'm like, oh yeah, they haven't seen each other since season 1. I forgot. But that reaction, it's so all of a sudden you're going through your head of all the things that they know and that they've seen or that they're blaming the other for, and I'm like, oh, Yeah, there's some stuff here.
You
I
get the
had
sense that Theon has accepting that this might be how he dies.
oh yeah.
Like Theon is just like, well, I guess my chickens have come home to roost.
I mean,
Like
real quick, doesn't that
the
kind of seem
only
like?
other Stark left is crippled. Like this one might have a fighting chance.
Well, I'm thinking back on that comment and on his interactions before this as well. He's kind of gone into that with every single interaction, hasn't he? Just a kind of a resignation that, someone might probably want to kill me here, and I probably deserve it.
Yes. I had written down the row in the rowboat as Theon stepped out. Um, absolutely. Like in my mind, I was going back thinking John's last thought of Theon was that he had burned his two brothers, and I think obviously he's seen Bran back at Castle Black now. I don't know. Hold on. Bran wasn't back when John left.
No, but he saw Rickon.
Rick,
No, but I think
right,
Sansa would have already
right.
told him, because didn't Theon tell Sansa that he didn't actually do that to her brothers? Actually, I'm not sure.
He may have. That was my thought, was that he was going to walk right up to him and kill him because he thought that he had burned his brothers. But that's right. He probably got it maybe off screen. Poor writing. I don't know.
Well,
No, I think he absolutely walks up thinking he's just going to, murder Theon right there where he stands. And Theon doesn't flinch. He doesn't like, oh crap, it's John, and like try and hide. He just kind of stands there like, hey, John.
He literally
How you
says,
doing?
"Hey, John, it's all right." I don't know.
Yeah.
What's up?
Like waiting for the punch to knock him on his ass. Um, I had a comment on the previous item that you had about Danny and John's interaction outside the cave with Tyrion, Amanda. I was going to highlight he has a history of pushing her close advisors away, sending Jorah away, and mistrusting Jorah. And for good cause, we found out it didn't go the right way. But how do you handle that? And I think that maybe because Tyrion is the closest person to her at that moment, aside from Missandei, that's why she lashes out at him, because she thinks that he can take it, or maybe that's the first thought she goes to is to be that brutal. I think that it's telling that that's her first take, is maybe you do want to save your family. And I actually had a thought too, hearing that comment, that maybe some part of Tyrion does want his family to survive. Like he knows Cersei's terrible, and he knows Jaime would do anything to protect Cersei, but maybe he doesn't want them their heads on a spike, right? Maybe he just wants them removed from power somehow, and he doesn't realize how dangerous they can actually be. I don't know. Gary.
I wonder if Tyrion secretly hopes that Jaime maybe could become the new Lord of Castle Rock and be forgiven, or if Tyrion thinks that he's going to be the new Lord of Castle Rock.
No, I could. Tyrion has always admired Jaime. They always get along.
Yeah, I don't think honestly Tyrion's thinking about what he's going to be lord of anymore. I honestly don't believe he's in the. He's the diametric opposite of Bronn at this point. The last thing on his mind is a castle.
I don't know.
Right.
He did literally
First
when
thing
he
is the
went.
ladies.
He did
They
again in the book, but he did in the book like demand like I want my inheritance because Jaime joined the Kingsguard. Like he's literally barred from owning
okay,
or from being. But
but
then again,
he said that as he shot his father, didn't he?
yeah, yeah.
So that's been a bit. He's had a little bit of a character arc.
What, you think he's been through some stuff since then?
Locked in a box with
He pushed his poo out a hole.
He did. He did indeed.
All right. Amanda, anything else from you?
The only other thing before we get to the battle is the interesting interaction between Littlefinger and Bran. Like he gave him the dagger. And there's so many things in this scene. I was like, we know obviously, and honestly, Bran knows because he's got his little powers. But Baelish just says something realistic about, in a way, that dagger made you what you are. Well, no kidding. And got news for you. You are in no small part responsible for a lot of that, Lord Baelish. But I would love to know exactly what's going on behind Bran's mind, since we know that he knows. Or I'm guessing he does at this point.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
Microeconomic theory on that transaction is that the last piece of Valyrian steel that the Starks owned as their family heirloom, ice, was melted down and given away. And this maybe is a token of a new Valyrian steel weapon to the Starks, to the oldest surviving Stark son. I wrote that down of like, well, from Littlefinger, like literally giving them a Valyrian steel weapon that he inadvertently was part of the reason that ice got lost from his family's, heritage. Steven?
Don't know if I agree with that. I'll be very honest. I don't know what he's thinking at this point, giving up that dagger, other than maybe trying to curry favor with someone who is admittedly not even human anymore. And
You're not human anymore.
I've never been human, Gary.
Oh.
But it's. I don't think that's anything to do with ice, and it actually makes me kind of. I can't. You can cut this part out. I can't go into it any further with without spoilers for further on.
Yeah, I think that's too far of a leap there, Gary, of Baelish being like, oh, I'm going to give you guys a Valyrian piece to replace the ice that was also Valyrian that was melted down. I think it's just trying to suck up curry favor with another Stark child there. Obviously, we all know it goes horribly wrong for him because Bran so famously says chaos is a ladder, and which that really shakes Baelish there. Go ahead, Nick.
That is his own words to Varys, but I don't remember what the context was.
They're
Chaos is a
talking in
ladder.
the throne room about
The uncertainty.
Some people think chaos
of
is a
people's-
pit, and in fact, chaos is a ladder.
yes.
Yeah.
And I
People's
think that's
ambitions.
when Ross was killed too.
Yep. That was that montage there where Ross, we found out Joffrey had killed Ross there with his crossbow.
The chaos is not a pit, chaos is a ladder. Some people climb and fall, and the fall breaks them. But some people use chaos in order to reach their ambitions to higher expectations or something like that.
Cool.
I think Amanda was first.
It's interesting the completely different way he's looking at Bran versus Arya. I felt like he was seeing both opportunity and threat in Arya, whereas he doesn't seem to be viewing Bran with the same threat. And I don't know if he can just, if it's because of personality, because Bran doesn't seem like he's all there, or if he's like seeing him, oh, look at this guy, he's crippled, like no threat to me. All I can do is gain in Sansa's eyes if I'm nice to him. Whereas Arya, he definitely, to me, felt threatened by.
Do you think he sees him as a new piece on the chessboard? Like someone who could be easily manipulated because he's young, he's not been in the lordly BS that Sansa has, where she's naturally distrusting of High Lords?
If I had to make another conspiracy theory, which I am doing myself in this episode for, I would say that I think Lord Baelish's goal is to be king of the Seven Kingdoms and Sansa as queen. So if Bran is Lord Stark, then that frees Sansa up to go be queen of something else because Winterfell's taken care of. And yet he can still get Winterfell because Bran probably can't have kids, is what he's thinking.
I think that real quick, before we move on from that point, that Littlefinger also sees Bran as subservient. I do think that he's quiet, that he is not expressive, and emotion matters a lot for Littlefinger, and how he reads people. And so I think he's completely misreading Bran. I do think, in fact, that he is maybe not courting him, but setting him up as a potential, hey, this guy might have uses down the road.
Yes.
And this guy might be someone that I can manipulate like I did before to other people.
Absolutely. That was the same thought that I had with him. I forget who it was, but somebody talked about, like, do they see Bran as a threat versus Arya? Absolutely not. Littlefinger gives Bran a weapon, and then when he sees Arya, he like bows from the top of the parapet there, like he's hey, don't kill me. I'm showing homage to you. There's a definite reverence there that's not shown with, hey, boy in the wheelchair, look here, here's a nice toy you can play with. That I think is kind of how I see that as well. Yeah, he's currying favor. That whole thing I think is what's going on with Bran. But Bran has that line, "Chaos is a ladder," which definitely, like you said, I think Tyler, it shocks Littlefinger to his core. Like he's about to ask, "Where did you hear that?" or "How do you know that phrase?" or "What does that phrase mean to you?" And there's something more there, and I think Littlefinger begins to see there's a change in that scene, and then he's interrupted. I had a line on that next interruption. He's interrupted by, is it Yara Reed? Yora Reed?
Mm-hmm.
Mira.
Thank you.
Mira.
Mira Reed. I had that
Be
impression
better.
too.
Yeah.
She comes in and she's just like, "You've been through some crap. This has been the ringer. I have to go. I know this is going to be heartbreaking." And Bran's like, "Peace out. See ya." Like, he's committed
Thank
to
you.
the Three-Eyed Raven now. Yeah.
Next.
Like, thank you. Yeah, I remember what it was like to be Brandon Stark, and maybe I had feelings for you once upon a time, but don't let the door hit you on the way out. And it's just this very despondent, very cold, you know, feelings towards who she is and what she's done. Right? Like she says, she's lost a brother. That reference again, Hodor died for you. I forget, maybe it was Gary who had commented that Hodor is never mentioned again in the show. Like his sacrifice
I'll give you
matters.
one. He's mentioned once.
That's more than never.
There's more than ever. And it's just this weird, like she's ready to go in and bawl her eyes out and have him say, "Don't leave," and "Thank you. Well, I couldn't have done this without you." And he's just like, "Thank you, bye." And so I had that scene highlighted as well. That was also very awkward, either in the way it was written, or the way it was portrayed, or just that Bran is so much more the Raven now that scene just hits like a ton of bricks because we know what Mira has been through for that. Gary.
Yeah, I guess I'm not maybe agreeing with Nick that I feel like the way Brandon talks to Mira as if she's disposable, and that all of the other members of the party that got him to where he was were disposable. They were bricks that laid the foundation for him to become the Three-Eyed Raven, but now that doesn't matter anymore. Whereas I wonder if Mira really is suffering from a little bit of PTSD, and she feels the only person she can confide in. Like, we talk about weird stuff that no one's gonna believe with like the two Stark sisters. Like, no one's gonna believe Mira and all the like crazy Children of the Forest stuff and White Walkers that she's seen. Like, and I think she just has PTSD. Like, and yeah, Brandon's a dick. Steven?
Yeah, no, he says in there, and this is where I said he's not fully human anymore. He says, "I am not him anymore," because he said, I think she says something to the extent of, "Bran, come on, you gotta show something," and I am not that person anymore. Regardless of how long he hasn't been that person, she has been with him when he transferred into that new personhood. So not only does he owe her for getting to this new personhood, but she was there protecting she was protecting the Three-Eyed Raven. If Bran isn't strong enough, I don't want to say isn't man enough because that's not the right way of putting it, but isn't big enough to come out and actually say thank you, then the Three-Eyed Raven who watched her sacrifice the life of two of their companions for him and then guide him the entire way back should have something to say. Hey, thank you for protecting Three-Eyed Raven. I mean, fuck, at least give him like a commemorative rock. Like, and here's your medal. Like, give him something. Give her something. This is ridiculous. And
He's also
I really hope, real quick, I really hope this isn't the way the books go, because I really like Jojen Reed and I really like Mira Reed, and I do not want to see her written out like this. And it gives me the feel of the movie or the show not knowing what to do with Mira Reed anymore, and so writing her out. It doesn't have the feel of me of some way of getting rid of a character like George R. R. Martin would. George R. R. Martin would kill her. He would flay her alive, throw her in a pit, still alive, and then kill her. And that's how George R. R. Martin does. He doesn't write off, and then she went home and lived happily ever after. So,
Or she would have died in the trip back somehow.
yes, exactly.
And Hodor lives. Conspiracy theory, Hodor lives. And the whole nomenclature of his name is all bullshit, and George R. R. Martin's gonna just whitewash over that. Like,
But huge disservice to Mira Reed, and I'm glad you brought that up because I had actually forgotten to
Okay.
bring that up. That was a point I wanted to bring up.
I do
and
think
that is
that
the
like
last we speak of her.
all of Bran's like, I get that he's got a gazillion memories in his head now, but plenty of those memories are also from people who've had to be grateful for the people who got them to where they are. So like, he's got a hell of an excuse, and yet it's not enough for me. Like you said, Steven, like she was still there that entire time.
Imagine this guy trying to lead anything bigger than a walnut down the street. I mean, that would be crazy.
I had written down, just like you said, Stephen, Bran's words are, I remember what it was like to be Brandon Stark, but I remember so much more now. And Mira's comments are, you died in that cave. So very much, she recognizes that transition as well. Are you all ready to move on to the fight, or is there anything else? Because I had a couple little one-off other ones.
Did you have anything else, Nick? I think we're up to you, unless Amanda still had more to keep going. Amanda's
Nope, I'm
good.
good.
What do you got, Nick?
I talked a little bit about the awkwardness in the Arya and Sansa meeting in the crypts. Their first hug, Arya has her eyes open and there's no music. After they kind of laughingly joke about her kill story, her kill list, they both say that they have long stories, both not very pleasant, mine neither. And they say, but they're not over yet. And then they have another hug. The second hug, Arya closes her eyes, and it seems like it's a much more genuine hug. In that second bit, after they kind of talk a little bit more. And then, like I mentioned, Sansa mentions that Jon is back and Bran is here too. We talked about Bran's passing off of the dagger. No sexual fetishes there, Gary. Just passing off the dagger. And when they're at the weirwood tree talking there, Sansa, I think, brings it up. Where did you get the dagger from, or where did that come from? And Bran says, Littlefinger gave it to me. And all three Stark kids say Littlefinger's not to be trusted. Like, we were talking a little bit about how it seems like Littlefinger is up to something, or we know he's got scheming that he does, but the characters in the show, in canon, know that Littlefinger's not to be trusted. So I wanted to highlight that little note as well, that they're all unified on that front. We talked about in the cave, Davos says he's going to switch sides and join Missandei. Talked a little bit about the symbols too. I had highlighted that as well, that the weird symbols are meant to kind of either retcon or highlight that there is some tie back to some of the other symbolism we've seen in these episodes. But those similar symbols are there as well. The sparring duel. Oh, I've got one last note before the actual battle. Randall Tarley flat out suggests flogging their own men. What a jackass!
The floggings will continue until morale improves.
There's a clear couple looks in this scene. Obviously, Jaime and Bronn have some, like, they know each other, they've got a history, but there's a couple like clear nods to each other where they're like, "What the frack is this guy doing?" Like they see how terrible a person he is. So that's all I had, is that he's a terrible human being, and they exchange glances. So I'll let you all discuss. I have a follow-up thought, but yeah, go ahead.
I wrote that down as I didn't write anything about Randall Tarley because I was like, yeah, I get Randall Tarley's supposed to be a great battlefield or a decent general or whatever, but Jaime full props to saying, let's give fair warning first. These men fought well at High Garden. Like, Jamie is actually a pretty decent leader. Like, did pretty good.
I'm not sure that's surprising though that he's a good leader. He's been a great general now since he had his hand chopped off, basically.
Go ahead, Gary.
Conspiracy theory number 4. Randall Tarley is not as bad as he's portrayed in the show.
He's just
He's
a
portrayed
Targaryen.
as a much worse person because you're already supposed to not like him based on his interaction with Sam. If he was a likable, like competent character and his son was a likable, competent character, that would diminish the value of you just continuing to hate him for being a dick to Sam. Tyler?
Let the record state that Gary does not like Sam here, when Gary is completely wrong in that part, because Sam is a very likable character. Amanda.
Yes.
Yes.
I just had to throw out there quick that Gary said conspiracy theory number 4, and I'm quite sure we're at like 7 or 8 by this time.
Whatever. Do you guys so you guys don't think that this is an added shovel on your not supposed to like him? Like they could have portrayed him as a much more depthful character, but they didn't. They literally every second he's on screen, it only serves for you to dislike him more. Like they did not attempt any depth of that character.
Isn't that just called character building? The more you show this guy on the screen, like he's just an ass. So this is the character. He's just an ass. We don't have to like everybody on the screen there.
We've
And
seen
also-
some very dislikable characters, so he's not too much to me.
And
Amanda,
also
there are no
too,
dislikable characters. Sorry.
I was gonna say also too, this show is now racing towards an ending here that now has 9 episodes left to go. I think they're a little running out of time to start building new characters they just introduced, really.
Remember, he's also the world's #1 dad because we've seen him interact with Sam as well. So it's not like this is added on to say he's a terrible person. We've already established he's a terrible person. All right, so here's my follow-up point. Unless somebody else has something to add on that little bit. Here's my follow-up point. I wrote down, when I saw this scene, my mind questioned, is Jamie getting soft? Hear me out. Bronn and Jamie exchange glances at Tarly's comments. Obviously, as audience members, we're meant... Gross. Obviously, as audience members, we're meant to think Tarly's a jackass. However, isn't Jamie the same character who threatened to launch Lord Edmure's baby with a catapult into Riverrun at the siege of Riverrun? Is Jamie getting easier as he's growing older in this scene, in this series? Is he becoming more humane with how he treats people? Obviously, he's talking about Edmure, his captive, his prisoner, versus in this scene, it's their own men, quote unquote, who fought well at Highgarden. So I just was curious that's obviously there's a lot that's happened between those few scenes, but that's where my mind went was, I get that we're meant to dislike Tarly, but it really shows, like Tyler was just saying, growth for Jamie as well. What's your take on that?
I first of all want to say that I'm pretty sure that was hyperbolic comment that he was going to launch Lord Edmure's baby across the wall. Don't think that was going to happen. If it was Cersei in command, yeah, of course. But Daenerys, a flaming baby. But I don't think Jamie would do it. And
Hyperbolic. Is he a Street Fighter character?
No, he's in a time chamber actually. But
Okay.
A lot of deep cut references.
yes. Sorry. But no, I also think that he has grown leaps and bounds. He knows when to use a carrot and when to use the whip, right? And he knows that you don't flog a victorious army. You don't, just because they're not doing exactly what you want. Should you be strict with them? Probably, but you probably should do more carrots than you should do floggings. And I think that just in general, he is a better commander. And it reminds me of back in, I was talking to a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army a long time ago, and he was telling me about the differences in different commanding styles, and he put the stereotypical amazing commander of Patton on the screen, and then the commander of Maximus from Gladiator. And he says, which one of these men would you serve under, and which one of these men would you lend down your life for? And he goes on to say that you would almost always, a soldier would want to do it for Maximus, because Maximus respects his soldiers. He is there for his soldiers. He is a friend to his soldiers. Patton's over there slapping people with PTSD, and he gets a little bit of respect, but he gets a lot of fear. And that's a difference in kind of command styles that I see right here. You have the difference between someone who is loved and respected, and the difference between someone who is just feared.
I want people to love me or fear me. Both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
All sorts of pop culture references going on in this episode.
Right.
Boo!
Um,
Sorry, I couldn't get to the mute quick enough to boo Nick. Anyway, Amanda.
As soon as you started talking, Nick, I was like, yeah, you know what? Now that you were mentioning, has he gone soft? Maybe, because it was only a couple seasons ago that he literally killed his cousin in order for the attempt to get out. Like, that is not something at all that you would see he would not be sacrificing someone so callously, and he did not think anything of it back then and showed no remorse.
Yep. Just the distinction, I think, between the two characters, where they are in their journey.
I don't have anything more on the Jamie of it all, but I think around that same conversation is Jamie getting a report of the gold, and on a rewatch, I heard the words, "All of gold is through the gates of King's Landing," which I did
Correct.
not think was true. I thought that they burned the gold in this episode.
Correct.
So
That was the last little note I had before actually jumping into the battle. Is I questioned, where the F are they? Because they don't. There's like these giant plateaus in the middle of nowhere, and there's this big field. I don't know where they are.
They're
but
just
they
outside the city of Dorne.
they said that they have to get this last bit through across the river Rush or something like that, which is one of the main rivers that feed the Blackwater Rush, which feeds down into the Blackwater Rush. So they're somewhere outside of King's Landing. And again, each time we see the city, it's framed differently, like it's on the coast or it's down at the edge under a valley or something like that. But I was curious where the hell they were at, and rewatching that final battle, where the sun comes up, it's to the east, where the sun is going down to the west behind them, and so they're currently facing south, and from the hill where the battle, the Ravagers come from, is down from the north. So somehow they got behind them somehow, and that's where they're attacking them from. Somewhere just outside of the city is kind of where I was trying to place it.
It's really, I echoing that. That's really weird terrain. I actually have the show paused on a scene of the terrain right now, kind of showing what it looks like. It's nothing like what you've seen in this show before. Maybe besides on the continent itself, it looks weird. It doesn't look like it belongs here, and I think they more threw it in for, hey, this looks nice.
Yeah. I mean, it does look cool, but yeah, I think you're right. Because
They
they've
said
got
they
to
have
use
to
somewhere
sorry.
between the Reach and King's Landing, and closer to King's Landing is kind of what it sounds like, which would make sense because one of the notes I put on here was, how did the Dothraki get there? Like, were that just?
Oh, I will be talking about that.
They have that highlighted. They say we have to get them across the Blackwater Rush for this last group, but the Blackwater Rush doesn't cross the Rose Road, which goes down towards the Reach. The Gold Road is where the what crosses over the Blackwater Rush, but the Gold Road goes up to the Westerlands and up towards where the Lannisters are. And so where the F are they is what I was trying to figure out.
No idea.
Yeah. So.
My opinion is that Nick is overthinking this, and they just wanted green grass to complement hundreds of people burning alive, and that's all the reason the background was like, what background will look best for people burning alive?
Two things Nick cares about: dragons and cartography. Gary, you must know this.
Are you saying, Gary, that if you think about what's going on in the show a little bit more, it starts to not make sense anymore?
to fall
I
apart.
just wish Nick was a silent cartographer.
Jeez.
There's a lot of solid references in this.
Jeez.
Some good Easter eggs.
Gary, I think you're the last person. Did you have any special points you wanted to touch on, or are we good to jump into the battle?
I had an overall note for the episode that really isn't at all related to the battle, but it was kind of the reflection that like Dany is realizing early on the episode that Westeros does not reward friendship or like all of the things that on her path she's got rewarded for, like freeing slaves and like freeing like the oppressed. Westeros doesn't give a damn. Like every single person she's befriended so far has just gotten effed over by the magical sea forces and
For real.
magical military. So that was kind of my kind of at the end of the episode, just kind of thinking about it, I was like, she really is really, really angry on the beach, but that's because how she has curried favor and leadership is not working for her in Westeros.
Everything has always been so easy for me, and now it's not.
Yes.
Very
Like,
astute
she's also
point,
not
Gary.
crying. You've got a good point. She's not even like trying. She's just out there being like, "I'm the queen, kneel." Oh, okay. Did that work for you? And how you got all of your followers? None of them showed up that way. So why don't you try that a little bit?
Yeah. And then after that, I'm ready to go into battle-y things.
Okay. I'm going to
Battle-y
start us off
things.
here. Robert
right.
Baratheon's worst fear is realized. Dothraki are now
Had that
seen on
note.
an open field.
I had that note as well. Old
And-
fool.
Steven, I think you and I both have this probably point written down as like, how the fuck did Dany get that many Dothraki from
Right.
Dragonstone to this magical
Oh.
field when her ship has been burned or whatever, when she supposedly had
She's
her fleet
lost
decimated?
2 navies.
Yeah.
Not only did she lose 2 navies, but the second navy that actually delivered goddamn soldiers to this continent delivered the Unsullied. They didn't deliver Dothraki. Where the fuck are the Dothraki coming from? Look at all these goddamn horses. Oh my gosh. Tyler, I am incensed.
Okay, I have a Dothraki question that doesn't involve logistics. And that
Conspiracy
is
theory.
when you guys watched it, speaking of sound mixing and the cinema, like the movie like aspect that Game of Thrones go through, did you guys hear the hoof noises first?
No.
I listen because I'm a purist. I listen in 7.1 surround sound. 7.2. Let's not, yeah. So on that scene, before you even see the Dothraki, you get the scene where everyone's like, huh? What's that? And they shift to the hill, and you can just hear a bass line of effing hooves coming at you. So
That's
just
cool.
if you,
Oh.
yeah.
Well,
They,
if I had
they were
2
clearly
subwoofers.
listening to something. I just couldn't tell exactly what.
I,
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
couldn't hear
have
it.
I could hear it.
7.2 surround, Gary, but I did.
I did not have 2 subwoofers on either side of me waiting for that.
Anyway, just something to maybe rewatch and just kind of pay attention to that I really was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, anyway, that was my Dothraki note. Not as interesting as yours, but
and
Amanda?
yeah.
For my Dothraki note, I wrote down it was this small little cool move they showed when the Dothraki at the most of them at the same time stood on their running horses to get better shots. Like they did it. It was a very small, quick little scene. They did it really cool. You don't ever hear it referred to otherwise, but just showcasing their talents as archers, which you don't actually see a lot in the show.
Slightly historically accurate? Like,
Mhm,
maybe
slightly,
not?
yep.
Yeah, actually.
It is.
Maybe
which
just
is-
by carnies, but who knows?
Well, so standing on the real quick, standing on the horses wouldn't be accurate, but if these are based on the Mongols, which I'm assuming they are, they would use horse archers to devastating effect on armored columns, like what we're going to see here. Which I will go into that point a little later because they do not use horse archers all that much in this attack.
I was going to kind of point out here too, this is us as the viewers, our first opportunity to see dragons on a battlefield. They're basically laying waste to somebody. But a point I did want to call out here is like, and maybe this is just me, like it has to do with like the time difference between when the battle starts and when kind of later on, is like it felt like the effects of Dragonfire seem kind of inconsistent there. It's like some people get set on fire, some people are like fully engulfed, and then other people just get instantly turned to ash. And like it could be, yes, they were in battle
Toasted.
longer, or they got hit more with the direct fire of the dragon's breath or whatever, but it felt like every time they showed Dragon's Breath working on the army, it felt just inconsistent between scenes. Steven.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fire just did what the producers needed it to do. And I agree. The first people that got hit by that dragon fire, they burn for like 3 minutes. And then when you're going towards the end, when Jamie's running around, a group of soldiers gets hit by the dragon fire and immediately dusts. Like they got hit by the snap of Thanos or something. And it's
Another solid reference.
Another solid. That's why I actually looked for that one. But it's wildly inconsistent, and I don't think that has to do with the power of the dragon being used. I think that has to do with what effects would look cool right now.
I think so.
I don't know if it's covered in the post of this episode, but this scene in particular has I think it's like a Guinness World Record of the most human beings on fire on a screen at any given time.
Oh,
because they had to have they tried to do it practically, all these people burning. So they literally had to have like 10 different people who are going to be lit on fire, 10 different people who are going to put them out. Like they had all this logistics. So when you point out that like people didn't like look like they were burning at an efficient rate, I was like, because you can only start someone on fire once and then you got to let them go to lunch. Like you can't burn them all day.
Then you
Anyway,
gotta go to
Amanda.
lunch. I'm so
Damn
glad that I
unions.
actually like could see Steven's face when Gary mentioned that fact, because Steven was utterly horrified by that many people being on fire at the same time. It was a beautiful face. I know, I agree, Tyler. Like I wrote like, what is in that dragon fire that sometimes it gouges the earth, but other times it can have a near miss with Braun and he doesn't even get singed.
Yep.
True.
Or the Dothraki horses can run right through it after they've torched a line of men.
Right. I did have to also like mention, like Tyrion comes to like watch the battle. Where did he come from? Why isn't he in armor? If you wear it in your battle, regardless if you fight, because in case battle lines shift, which is something that it always happens. Like, and he's just hanging out on the hill, not even a helm on, which none of them are wearing helms, but I assume that's kind of for the viewers, for us to know who they are. But
who's running the castle?
Mm-hmm. And then one little note that usually Steven is the one of the two of us that it's a military history, closer to a military history expert. But as someone who has shot a bow, can we please knock, draw, and shoot our arrows a little bit faster? I can shoot faster than that, so I feel like them taking the same amount of time it would take to reload a musket practically. Like, no wonder they're gonna lose to the dragon. They can't shoot fast.
They're using the brown best bow, all right?
Go ahead, Nick.
I had on there too, talking about the dragon. A lot of what I know from dragon interactions is from Dungeons and Dragons. I highlighted that there's not a time difference between the dragon being able to use its breath weapons. There's one scene where it flies right over the loot train, and it blasts, stops, and distinctly blasts a second time. And hell, if the dragon can just fire whenever it wants to, just have it consistently yawn and fly over everything, right? Rather than having to do a big swath of sweep, if it just can light everything on fire by continually firing everything, just have it hover,
like a vacuum, just go back and forth quick and
exactly.
light the whole field up.
Light everything up, exactly. So yeah, I had some inconsistencies with the dragon as well. I also highlighted it for what the show was trying to convey. It wasn't consistent, but it was a good use of how to use that aerial attack as well. And you can see it in Jamie and Braun's face that like they just felt like they were screwed. I felt like.
So I sort of agree with you, and I don't as well, because these troops were lined up in a line formation, which would be perfect if you had a dragon come through and laser them all. just across that
Oh.
line instead of going
Horizontal.
just perpendicular to the line and hitting just so you can get a line through. That makes no sense. I also just don't think it's I think she got really lucky that is a cloudy day, and she's able to have that sort of effect of it coming out of the clouds. Because imagine a sunny day, it would still be kind of cool, but see this little dragon just coming through the sky, just getting a little bigger, a little bigger. It's not the same effect.
Exactly. You don't have the hill shot to come down over the top to have the cool sweeping effect. Tyler.
I wanted to kind of go back a little bit to Amanda's point about Tyrion standing on the hill there too, and maybe other people have this as well. Of like, they're trying to portray Tyrion witnessing the horrors of this battle, but it's like, what did you
Far away.
expect? Like this is a battle. Obviously, this is the first time people on Westeros in a long time have seen Dragonfire destroy everything, and then he's kind of concerned about his brother being hurt too, and it's just like, what did you expect to happen here, Tyrion? This is your side. Dany is fighting now against the Lannister side, which is supposed to be your enemy there, and this is what's going to happen in battle.
And
Steven.
I think I agree with you entirely. And I think it's strange because at the Battle of Blackwater, he was the side using the dragon, or it was not called Dragonfire. What was it called?
It was Dragonfire.
It was Dragon. Okay. He was the side using Wildfire. That's what it was.
It. Thank you.
He was the side using Wildfire, burning people on ships alive. He was the one throwing it on pots down from the top of the railings, and he was the one down in the dirt getting his face slashed and also killing a whole bunch of dudes. Like, this isn't the first time he's experienced this, and it's not like he has changed that much in terms of advocating for war or not war. So yeah, I don't entirely understand the horrors he's saying here. He should be well versed to burning people alive.
Yeah, I don't. Is it like them trying to show a different side of the battle, the humanitarian side of the battle, or something like that? But then they're using the wrong character to kind of do that.
Yes, I agree entirely. And I honestly, I got that the first thing, and one of the first comments I had about this battle was when Daenerys' dragon flies in. It is a awe-inspiring moment because you could just the fear in the enemy lines. It would break any worse of an army. And then she lets loose the fire on those people. And my first thought was, my God, what a horrible way to go. And that is her go-to way of killing people. And at the time I was like, look at Daenerys finding the worst way to kill human beings. And it's like, it's her only way. And she has dragons. What are you going to do? But
Fire and blood.
That was the first thing when I saw those people just torch. My thought is, you sign up to maybe be gutted, maybe be beheaded, maybe be stabbed, shot, whatever. I don't think you sign up to be burned to death by a dragon. And it is an absolute horror. And I think they could have done this a lot better with a different person. I don't know, maybe Melisandre or somebody like that. But Melisandre's, she's drank the Kool-Aid. She's nowhere near objective anymore.
Adding to the discrepancy in the types of severity of the dragon fire, like some people are burned to ash, but then also you see Jaime watch some of the troops who are like on fire, like down at the water side, trying to get cooled off. Just the torment to know that you can smell and feel your own face burning off, trying desperately to get to the water. Yeah, there's a little bit of torment there in how you're treating your enemies.
Also, one last note on that. Tyrion was really far away. I'm looking at this scene again from it's where the Dothraki are charging. And so I will charitably say this is the top of the hill that they are charging from right now. And you cannot make out a single human being among the Lannisters. It's just a line. And you can't tell any individual. So, yeah, you could see people fire. Maybe you could see little matchsticks running around on fire, but you're not seeing people's faces melt off. He's not seeing that happen.
And then speaking of seeing people within the battle there, Tyrion sees Jaime go for the final charge to end the war right there. And I'm like, why are you doing... Like, I get the surface level thought behind doing that. Like, the don't think about it thought behind doing that of Jaime attacks Daenerys, kills her, wins the war. But she's not really like, I mean, she's not completely indefenseless there. She's got a fucking dragon there next to her that, granted, has got its wing kind of hurt, but still, its head fucking still moves around and could totally roast him. So, what the hell is Jaime doing now? Did he fucking lose his mind?
The only thing I could think of, and this is why they don't allow police to pursue cars and chases anymore, is it gets your blood going, your heart pumping hard, and you start not thinking as clearly as you should. You get into that moment of the battle and you make really rash decisions. Maybe this was that. It didn't seem like it. It seemed like he was calm, cool, and collected and was just a stupid decision. But that's the only thing I could think of.
I'll show you
I
Rash.
saw it.
I don't know what you guys heard. I just heard, I'll show you a rash.
All rash makes it worse. I don't know. I saw Jaime taking that as couldn't see the forest for the trees, and yeah, like he sees just his objective. If I can get again, he can see his objective. If I can get Daenerys, this ends. But doesn't see the threat and the obvious danger around it. Just that this is what my goal is. So yeah, it's for being listed as a great military tactician, the head of the the Queen's Guard, all of his training, being a great knight and a sir. It's a very terrible thing to do. We see, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe he just his rationale that his troops are being decimated. He has no more, no better options. Maybe he's willing to sacrifice himself. Maybe he does see the dragon and thinks if I can get her before the dragon gets me, it'll be worth it. I don't know.
I guess one of the other things I was looking at in this scene as well is just the strangeness of how this battle takes place. You have a Lannister army which just took over the entire city or castle of Highgarden, right? That's not a small army that you could have do that. And you are walking away with all your loot, all your plunder, assuming you do have to leave a garrison there. Sure. Skeleton garrison is left. Why does it look like there are maybe 100 Lannister soldiers here compared to 600 Dothraki riders? Where's the rest of the army? And where is, say, the cavalry, which would be performing things like what you would say scouting, so you don't get happened upon by some random army out in the middle of nowhere? I mean, I have a couple other thoughts on this, but I'll stop there for right now.
So I'll agree with you, but they do make mention there that I believe this is the tail end of the caravan there, basically. I think the majority of the Lannister force was up with the gold, basically making sure it got through to King's Landing.
Okay.
That would be my assumption for that. Of
Agreed.
course, I agree, though.
Say.
Sorry, Nick. I agree, though, like scouts and stuff like that, it's like you still want people covering your ass, even if you're the tail end of the army there, but maybe they just got roasted along the way back to trying to tell them Daenerys is coming. Now, Nick.
Yeah, that was my same thought too. When flogging Molly Tarly says that we should try and morale the troops to keep up with the rest of the groups who made it through the gate, Jaime does acknowledge, yeah, we're stretched kind of thin. So it's, yeah.
Okay, I missed that.
The Grand Cavalry is probably already through, and it's just these are the last few folks who are taking naps around the lake.
And I guess my other thought on that is, why do you have the commanding generals of the army all in the same spot? And if it's at the tail end of the army, why is it at the tail end of the army? I just thought it was some little contingent, but why are they at the tail end of the army? It's
because plot armor.
I know.
Because plot. You don't need the armor part.
We do have a certain amount of skepticism of how or why is Dany's troops so easy to overtake. Like, I'm going to send Olenna, the Queen of Thorns, back to Highgarden all by herself. She's older and feeble and can't really have anyone to protect her. I'm going to send my troops in Dorne back to their castle where they can easily be found because it's just one woman. Maybe we're seeing the opposite side. It's not that Dany's plans are so poorly laid out. It's just maybe both sides are underestimating who their opponents are. If I was in the Lannister army and I knew that my opponents had dragons, I would be watching the skies 24/7.
Well,
Right?
and that
So
that
maybe
oh sorry.
maybe there's just some. I was just gonna say maybe there's some level of denial. Dragons have never existed before. Maybe they don't have dragons. I don't know what they saw.
But that brings me to my other point. They have a scorpion or slash ballista waiting there in the end of the caravan specifically for this thing. How do they not immediately unhouse that and when Daenerys is flying in, shoot it the first time? Why don't they have a contingent trained to go there immediately, except having Bronn the Magnificent have to do everything? Bronn putting the fucking team on his back, and he can only carry it so long.
That's a good thing he
Right.
had the training on the fancy dragon crossbow.
Yeah.
Since I would have given major
Steven.
props to see him staring at it, trying to figure out how it works quick at least.
Steven, they're not paid enough. They're lower, like only upper management knows how to run a ballista. So
Well, there's some truth to that though, because the
But
first
why?
thing,
Okay, no. Why would you have?
the first thing
Go
Bronn
for it.
says is go. The first thing Bronn says is Jamie, go get on the ballista. He goes, I can't fire it with one hand. Like the contingency was that maybe somebody would hop on it, but they didn't even talk about who was going to be running it. So
Well, that's what I was going to
well
say. Is
played.
you have 2 generals and 2 lieutenants, which are the main characters here, right? It is oh, I'm forgetting their names. Who's the evil guy that we're saying, the evil general?
Randall Tarley.
Randall Tarley.
Randall, you have Jamie, who are the 2 generals, and then you have Braun and the other guy's son, who are the Dickon, or whatever his name
Dickon.
is. Dickon, who are the 2 lieutenants. The generals and lieutenants should not be running war machines. You should have actual troops doing that. And if you have this anti-aircraft weapon basically there, where are the people that run it? It makes no sense to me. Makes absolutely no sense.
They should have
At
trained
the
to
same
back
time, exactly. That's a military tactic. You learn the job of the person above you and teach your job to the person below you. So if you
Yes,
go down,
exactly.
someone can instantly jump in and help out. Yeah, as soon as they start barking orders, the whole focus is on the cavalry charge, and they say, form up, line up, shields, and there's all this little phalanx. Everybody's getting in place, whatever. Nobody says, hey, this is the enemy. Maybe they have a dragon with them. Somebody go man the scorpion. It's not until after the dragon flies in, they stare at it for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
The dragon breathes fire, and then they decide, crap, we should go get the scorpion, right?
Well, and
There
I
is
mean,
time where they could have done something.
even if you have a huge cavalry charge which is looking to completely overrun you, maybe you want that scorpion firing into the giant mass of soldiers coming at you. I don't know, skewer a couple.
You can pin a couple horses to each other.
Yeah.
A horse kebab.
So that doesn't make much sense to me. And then also just I will say I thought at first, wow, this is a really stupid idea, having an entire cavalry charge a line of spears, because spears are going to win that every day of the week. But then you have the Daenerys fly in with her dragon and burn a hole through it, and I thought that was actually pretty a good strategy that you'd use, or a tactic, I should say, good tactic you'd use. So props to that. More props would have been given if she'd just flown parallel to the line and burnt them all as she went, because that's probably a better idea, but hey, whatever. And I also I want to know how they found them. I don't understand how these armies keep finding each other magically and these navies keep finding each other magically. I just don't understand it.
Dany on her dragon would have the height advantage to maybe have spotted them from a couple miles off.
That could have been, actually. You just see a little falcon in the air and you don't realize it's a dragon.
Yeah.
Hey, next time you look up in the sky, birds aren't real. They're all dragons.
Yeah, I don't know, but that might have been. I don't know if we're going in like turns or we're just talking about things. I really likened the tracking shot with Braun running through the chaos and the mess. I liked that shot a lot. It highlights the chaos of the shot, and I also tied it very closely to Jon in the Battle of the Bastards when he had a very similar shot. I thought that was really cool.
Ooh, question for you guys. who is the more effective soldier? And it doesn't need to necessarily be on this one, but if you have a draft, who would you take first overall, Jaime or Bronn?
Jaime or Braun? Braun.
Take Bronn. Bronn.
I choose the mountain that rides.
Yeah,
So-
you're kicked out of the draft. That's not a legitimate
I,
choice.
I,
I
I
choose
would
Jaime.
not. In this situation where you're being charged by cavalry, the mountain that rides could probably stomp on a couple horse heads, but he's going to go down fast. Braun, so here's a point to the military strategy. Braun immediately turns to his commander and says, "Get out of here. These guys are going to
True.
swamp us." He's got the wherewithal to say, "You don't need to be here. You're too valuable." So, yeah, the one who has the best wherewithal to know which battles are winnable and which ones are not. You don't need to be martyred. Yeah, the ballista that nobody's really sure how to fire does seem to be able to be loaded fairly well. I'm sure it's got a mechanism in it
person,
so that
too.
yeah, exactly. I imagine that when you're cranking it down, it's got some sort of design in it, and we don't know the exact intricacies of what Qyburn's designed, where maybe the crank pulley relieves the tension, so as you're cranking it, it's not like it's actually you're doing the weight of it. But I feel like Braun got that first one loaded quickly, because when he's being chased by the Dothraki, it's like the Dothraki whips open the curtains, and he's already got it loaded with a bolt in the thing, and just fires it off at him.
Not
So
only.
it,
Oh, sorry.
you're good. I was just saying, so it fires or can be loaded quickly.
Well, not only on that scene, not only does he fire it just immediately as he walks in, he fires it without the bow actually extended. Because the next scene that you see is him going and like extending the bow, so somehow he
true.
fired it without it actually, fireable. But I put that down to Braun just being that good.
He just secretly slid it across the firing mechanism there real
Just
quickly.
threw it himself.
In that
Just full on.
in that enclosed trailer, just
Maybe with the extended limbs out, you get more pull, but with a person being directly in front of you 10 feet, you only need a little bit of the momentum to pull back, and the firing mechanism going forward might not be enough to actually injure a dragon, but is more than enough to smash a person into a wall.
It could be, but that would be a really weird design to have a ballista that has that much tension when it is not being used.
It's Qyburn. He's weird.
It is Qyburn. Qyburn's a weird person.
It also fires a blast of chemical poison so that you can injure your opponents when it hits. +3 damage of Qyburn sickness.
all right. Anyone have anything else they want to touch on the battle here? Do we pretty much cover it there? Gary and Amanda are no. Steven and Nick seem to be thinking on it.
I was going to point out that in the cinematography, they did take a second for Bronn to have to make a choice between when he lost his gold and going for the weapon. Like, you could see that he's obviously torn of like, oh, the only reason I'm here is for the gold. And it's like, well, I got to do this because I've already kind of hitched my horse to this wagon of the Lannisters. So I gotta go help these idiots not die.
I guess one more thing for me is when Bronn again pulls the hero mode and just spears Jaime off of his horse and saves him from dragonfire. They land in the water, and it looks like it's pretty deep water. Historical fun fact, King Barbarossa of Germany drowned in 3 inches of water because he fell on his face, and the armor was so heavy he couldn't get up. It makes me wonder, like, Jaime's not wearing, like, plate armor or anything, right? But he's wearing, looks like kind of heavy armor. You wouldn't be able to swim in it.
Yeah,
Lannister gold.
I do remember wondering about that too. Like, no matter what, he's got on some heavy armor.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like plate armor to me.
So it'll be interesting to see how he survives. If he survives. Maybe he drowns. Maybe this is the end of Jaime.
The dragon's head comes down in the water, just bites his face off as he's under the water. Burns fire into the water and just boils him alive.
There we go. Jaime stew.
Jaime stew.
one more thing, going back to the fire thing. There's something I noticed on when he tried to boil Jamie alive. The fire doesn't catch on the water, so it must be some sort of aerosol that they shoot out that catches fire. It's not a liquid that they shoot out that catches fire.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Gary's just blown
Atomizes.
away. All right.
Boo
Yeah,
history,
I don't have
Gary.
too much else.
Boo-
Oh, no.
boo-
We're
boo
missing
science.
the biggest part. Guys, we're missing the biggest part. Braun not only single-handedly gets his ballista off, shoots one person, fires a second round, gets a third round off, and shoots Daenerys' dragon. The first time these dragons have been legitimately injured by human interference in this entire series. He
It's true.
brings a dragon down with this ballista, and you see Dany's look of panic on her face. Do you guys think this lends credence to what Tyrion said? Hey, you shouldn't expose yourself. You're going to get something bad's going to happen. And if she was able to ambush the end of this caravan and she still gets her dragon shot, what does that portend for the chances of her dragons in future fights?
It definitely shows that they are, like, it shows to the people of Westeros that these dragons are mortal. They're not these invincible super weapons that stories would have you believe. Nick.
I've got another deep cut pop culture reference. If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Thank you, Arnold.
You're welcome. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it shows that her dragons aren't as powerful as she thinks they are. It lets her enemies know that even though they suffered heavy casualties, if you can get that one good shot off, it can weaken or take down their dragons too. So it changes the game a little bit. I think it exposes both sides. That the enemy has the capacity to hurt your dragons, but also that your dragons can be hurt. So yeah, good observation, Stephen.
All right. I think that is everything then for this episode from all of us. For next time, we will be watching Season 7, Episode 5, titled Eastwatch. I wonder what that's going to be in reference to. All right. Thank you for everybody for listening along. Hope you have a good one.
Bye!
Stay classy, everybody. Bye-bye.
Later.